to complete totally. I think we got the gist of it, but I'll develop it a little bit more because the topic itself is found throughout the New Testament. It's not a single one-off. This is something that's spoken of over and over again because a lot of the work that Paul and others were doing in that period, of course, was establishing the church. And establishing the church, that meant there needs to be structure. There needed to be order. There needed to be correction. There needs to be um, the, the awareness of the opposition that existed. So all of this was a part of the New Testament church ministry, and so Paul, of course, was the man with all of that. And in fact, in giving instruction, as I think I heard Mike say, follow God, not man. Not totally true. Actually, 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, imitate me just as I also imitate Christ. So they're walking this path together. They are journeying together. And Paul is helping them to understand the necessity of identifying other people who are really following Christ. And how do you know? Because you know Christ. And in knowing Christ, you can see the parallel. You can see that they're also picking up on the ways of Christ and living it out. So Paul said, keep your eyes focused on those who are doing so, I being one that's in your life. And this was juxtaposed to the Judaizers who were trying to convince them that what they had wasn't enough. Christ was not enough, that they needed to add to that circumcision and the ways of Jewish tradition. But Paul is confronting this, and while doing so, he's them into understanding fellowship at a different level, a deeper level, understanding community at a deeper level, understanding the significance and the importance of healthy community, right? And so, a part of that is, fellowship. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. Follow me as I follow Christ, right? So, fellowship, this whole concept, I like to work with words and terms and phrases and language to make the message fresh or new to our ears. It's not a new message, but it may be new to our ears because you at least have to pause and process what's being said. It's said. So even with the my editing team working with the reels to push those out, you know, they kept making the mistake of writing fellowship. I said, no, it's fellowship. So they had to edit. So then it created room for a conversation like, okay, fellowship. Yes, we are learning how to follow properly. And it's important. Jesus is offered to those that he called to be his disciples. Come follow me. So it's a thing, but it's not a new concept and it's not exclusive to the church. You got fellowship on your job. We have fellowship in our families. We have fellowship with sports. You have fellowship with civic life. So fellowship is not a new creation or not a new thing. And sometimes I think it's important to kind of look and see, that, yeah, by the way, I do follow it at work. Sometimes you're giving someone this training and you're following them, right? And if you're not giving a specific person in a structured way, there are always people who are doing it good who you look to and you try to pattern after. So the concept of fellowship is not new. We in our family we tend to pick up the ways of our parents. Many times when we're dealing with premarital counseling, one of the things we do is go back and we look at the parents and then even the grandparents to try to establish what behaviors, patterns have you been exposed to that will speak to your relationship, that will inform your own marriage. And it's amazing how many people don't realize how much their marriage gets impacted by things that they have gleaned and picked up that they never processed, and it never came to mind until there was pressure, until there was a shift. As you bring two cultures together and you have that cultural clash, it's at that moment that you realize, well, I'm acting like my father or I'm acting like my mother. And by the way, you don't get to pick and choose the good and the bad behaviors. You tend to get all of it, then you have to sort it. Then you have to go and do the cleanup work. And then you have to humble yourself and submit to the process of becoming one. It's the same basic concept. Okay. So let's visit with Philippians today. Philippians chapter 3. And I'm going to go verses 15 through 17. Philippians 3, 15 through 17. Therefore, let me give you a little background before I get into the therefore thing, because it's therefore, because it's there for a reason. All right. So Paul has just finished. He made about counting all that he had as done, about pressing toward the mark, about making priority Christ and not his flesh. So here we go. Therefore, let us, as many as are mature, have this mind. And if anything you think otherwise, God will reveal even this to you. Nevertheless, to the degree that we have already attained, let us walk by the same rule. You could also say in that code of same rule, code of conduct. Let us be of the same mind. Our citizenship in heaven. Brethren, join in following my example, and not those who so walk as you have us for a pattern. So once again, let me just go back, clean that up a little bit. So he's arguing the point against the Judaizers' position that they needed to be circumcised in order to be complete. And he's saying, no, we don't live in that anymore. All right. And so grow, have a different mind, a mature mind, and think that way, and don't go back, don't flirt with that idea of living in tradition and living by the law, because you have been given grace. So he said, let's all think in this same way, move in this same way, and then follow the example of those who are walking it out. He said, you have us as a pattern, you have them as a pattern, all right? So maturity means, one mind and then a healthy faith community. So Paul is encouraging them in this text to leave law keeping behind and embrace the idea of grace. Embrace that, having no confidence in the flesh, as he also had practiced. And then he says, hold on to this grace. So it's one thing to leave behind, it's another thing to embrace what is true. But as time goes and other voices and other experiences and other influences, it's easy to slip back into believing otherwise. When you hear the term fall from grace, that's what it's speaking of. It's not talking about sinning and falling from grace or losing your salvation, which someone interpreted as. But to fall from grace means you begin to believe that your good deeds, your good works, these are the things that give you the favor or the position with God to be able to gain that grace. But no, grace is free. Grace is given to you at no cost to you at all. So Paul is encouraging this church. He said, listen, hold on to what is true and don't wear yourself out, listening to these guys. But go ahead and press forward and keep your eyes on those who are walking it out. So walk by that same code of conduct, that same lifestyle, that same Christ-like living, and then possess the same mind. Example here. Then he says, look at the others. There are patterns. And remember, we talk about patterns a lot. We talk about patterns in scripture. There's pattern in the patterns in the way people live. The people that lead you, and this goes back again, let's get back to following people, versus following Christ. Well, we follow people that follow Christ. And there are certain patterns that are established in the way that we live. You know, I love Bishop Kirby's consistency. I've known him for all these years, and he's never deviated from being the person that he is. I know him to be a praying man. That's a pattern. I know him he to be a loving man. I love him. I know him to be a compassionate man. He has a huge heart for the church and specifically church leaders. And so he'll go literally to anywhere on the planet to be a blessing to an encouragement to or to help to to preserve a industry that perhaps has experienced trouble, some issues. So this is a pattern that I've seen over the years. I've watched him walk this out. So it's something that I do. It's something that's almost second nature now after all of these years. And I have that pattern in a person, in a man. And it's a blessing. Now I also get a chance, by the way, to see his human side. But I can make that distinction. I have the truth, right? I understand the human realities. So I have that. But he's not the only one. And I know I make mention of him all the time because he's the one that's been the closest to me in recent years. But my pastor, Pastor Alfred, I mentioned him. A pattern. He was a reader and he loved books. I mean, he absolutely loved books. And I look around sometimes, even here, I'm looking at a stack of 10 books stacked, and that doesn't include the digital books and the audio books. But my being in his presence, walking into his office space, and that was in his home. He didn't have books in the church. He didn't want to show off. He had books in his personal office space in his home. And when you went, they were stacked on top of shelves, stuffed in corners. In fact, it was so bad with him that he had to sneak books in because his wife told him to stop buying books. So when we would go to the store down in Moody, he would drive down with us. He would tell us, when you get home, don't tell mother we got these books. So that's a pattern too. But patterns. So I learned to appreciate reading. I learned to appreciate books. He taught us how to choose a book. Don't choose a book by how pretty the cover is, how exciting the title is. He said, find out who wrote the book and try to find out who taught them. Patterns, patterns. So fellowship shows up and emerges in these ways. Bishop Chambers, I was talking to his son yesterday. So those are my three pastors, by the way, in order. Pastor Alfred, and Gloria and I both had Pastor Alfred growing up as kids. Gloria has a story about dropping candy in the middle of service that rolled down to the front of the sanctuary, but I'm not here to tell her business. This is her birthday week. Anyway, we had Pastor Alfred, and then Bishop Chambers, and then finally Bishop Kirby. And so I've not had 10 pastors, and I've not had a bunch of churches, and each stop was a meaningful one. But Bishop Chambers was a man of few words. They're quiet, right? Again, very consistent. Fasting and praying was a major thing for him. He was known for it. He was a man of faith. He was so crazy with faith that he moved into the church. The building still is there. He's passed on just a couple of years now. And he moved into the building by faith, ordered chairs with no money, called the bank up and told the banker, listen, I got these chairs coming. I think the number was something about around $40,000 then. He says, and I don't have any money, so I need you to give me a check so I can take care of these chairs. Pattern. Now, that was a little crazy, but he did it, and the man wrote the check. And not only that, did that man write the check, he became so enamored by the way this man moved, the way he did ministry, that when he died, he left the ministry in his trust, and they got money for the child care portion of the ministry every until they no longer had that. Patterns. What's the point of the matter? We need to look around and see, who should I be patterning my life after to become more like Jesus Christ? right? And the basis of all of this is love. It's the a love that we have for Christ, love that we have for people, and love that we have for his mission. Love for Christ, love for people, love for his mission. So important to keep that in mind. Um, you would think it would be simple, and it can be said over and over and over again, but people become a part of churches for a variety of reasons, and it ain't always patterns. It's not always looking for the ways of Christ, not always looking to be conformed to the ways of Christ. But the attention that I'm calling us to is that should be why. And we should have these practices. And at the end of the day, it's about loving Christ, loving people, loving God's mission. So we teach about the kingdom. We teach about redemption of mankind and the restoration of all things to bring us into the understanding of what we just bought into. We teach about the fact that we can't live individual lives, selfish individual lives. It doesn't work in this economy, in the kingdom economy, because this is a body, and the body has purpose, and the purpose is redemption of mankind, the restoration of all things. When we are following, we're following so that we can submit ourselves to becoming a vital part of this healthy community that God is working to attend and to establish. So we're talking healthy fellowship, healthy fellowship. So if we take a look at that, and let me hit some points there and then just talk about the net result, and then I'll be done. Healthy fellowship is number one, showing up, checking in faithfully, being present, not physically alone, but being present, meaning I'm in touch with what's going on here with this work. I'm in touch, I'm in tune with the mission of Journey Center Global. I've bought in. I'm giving my all to it because I believe in it, because I love Christ, because I love people, because I understand it. I love the mission. I love what God is trying to do here. I see what he's up to. And so healthy fellowship, it becomes easy when we understand that and we buy into it at that level. So it's checking in faithfully, showing up. Number two, it's engaging willingly. Nobody wants to fight you, right? Is engaging willingly. Um, in Corinthians 9, when he's talking about giving, he said, not by compulsion. And then there are other texts that talks about not by compulsion, not by force, not because somebody stressed you, not because somebody promised you something, not because you were threatened. That's not the way of the kingdom. Healthy fellowship is a is a willing engagement. You bring yourself, say, what can I do to add to this? What can I contribute to add to this, to ensure that what God is up to actually happens? Third point, healthy fellowship, observing and listening, active listening. My pastor, Pastor Alfred. Now, some people talk about his teaching and teaching ability. I thought he was just a simple preacher myself. So much so that I don't remember a whole lot of his messages. I more or less sat and watched the way he handled people. I watched the way he handled crisis. I watched the way he handled situations that were delicate, and then just living family wise, the way he handled his children. He had a variety of children mixes. That's all I want to say about that. you know, they used to say that there's more caught than taught. I don't know if you ever heard that term before, more caught than taught. It's not always what you say with your mouth. It doesn't always come in the form of this incredible preached message. Sometimes it's just the way you live, right? So healthy fellowship is observing and listening. Be attentive. Pay attention to things that are happening, the way they're happening, and don't be, what was one scripture say, don't rush to judgment. Sometimes you have to let things play out. Let it play out. You don't know what's happening. Don't judge that prematurely, right? So healthy fellowship is observing and listening. You glean a lot. So that's why when you hang with people, you learn stuff just by hanging with folk. You watch them do what they do the way they do it. Um, that's healthy fellowship, right? It's important that you remain teachable because people tend to believe that there's ceremony that occurs for those who are followers, and at some point in time, you no longer follow. Now you're the leader. You never stop following. So you must also then remain teachable. And sometimes that's a challenge. I've had the issue where a person thought they're grown and matured to a level where they're no longer willing to hear my voice. Even Bishop Kirby and I were talking once, and he says, "Oh, grown beyond me." No, that's not true at all. And I don't ever want you to feel that way. If that's what you were feeling, let me do whatever I need to do to get that. I want to remain teachable. I'm 63, yeah, and I push back on them, but that's not to say I don't need any more. Anybody that's ahead of me's got something to tell me. Anybody that's down the road has something to put into my life. I want to be teachable, right? And let me just go further. It may not be a person down the road. Something happened with tomorrow. I didn't even told her about it, but we went to the ball game and I had an incident with the grand girls, and then tomorrow said something just slight, just simple, boom, and she dropped it, and that was that. Was like because she got a little old lady spirit on her, so she didn't know I learned something that day. And I said to myself, I learned something that day. Let me listen. Let me listen to anybody that got some good sense or some wisdom. Anybody that's following God. All these patterns are available, right? So we need to remain teachable. The young people come up. Mark Alaganja working with us in Conclave. He brings a different voice. We raised that boy. Can I say it just like that? He's a grown man and a daddy and everything and a husband. But he's bringing stuff to the table that's making us kind of say, okay, well, why don't we just back down a little bit and just listen to what he has to say? Because he's bringing something, right? And then you had Brooks, and they chimed in. And yesterday, the two of them started chopping it up. Us who are 20 years, 30 years, they're senior, 20 years at least, you know, are gleaning. We're learning, we're growing, all right. So, and the beauty is, of course, when you can get it going both ways, and there's that generational exchange, and you're handing down, and then sometimes they're handing up. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful picture. I hope you're getting what I'm saying when we talk about fellowship. There's a beauty in it. There's a sweetness in it. And so when we're following, we should make sure that we stay consistent. Stay consistent with that fellowship. Don't get off track. And if you do, if you start drifting, get back on the horse. And then, of course, the ultimate is that we become a pattern for others. Following with humility makes a huge statement if you've never recognized that. People who follow with, and let me just paint that picture a little bit more. You can have an absolute genius that's in the second chair, but they know when and how to show up. They may be smarter than, they may be more intelligent, they may be more powerful, more influential, all of that, but they know when and how. Pastor Ed Copeland, who preached the funeral yesterday, wrote a book, Riding in the Second Chariot. He actually, well, and we've carried that book. Good book, good book. I told him it could have been less Baptist because everybody needs that. It's a universal message. But riding in the second chariot, and he gave the wisdom of having been gifted in a certain way and placed in a position behind a primary leader and how to serve in that space. And it was very, very helpful. And he wrote it for a reason because not everybody understands that level of fellowship. Not everybody understands what that looks like and what it can produce. And I can develop that a little bit more, but I'm going to move on. Be a pattern for others. And the net result will be maturing believers in our community, folk growing up in the Lord. folk taking on the ways of Christ. A stable community. You have people in and out, in and out, in and out. No, thriving, doing the work, people sticking because they have agreed to this ideal. And then we become an attractive community because when people come in, they see order, they see honor, they see respect, they see love, the driving force. And then people get to know God. They come to know God in a deeper, richer, fuller way, which we've experienced in this past 5 years in a way that we've never done before. And it's exciting. You know, we had to get our heads right around it and determine, wow, you know, is this legit? You know, is God okay with this? You know, we know church people could be challenged by it, but yeah, if there's truth, God is okay. So we get a chance through healthy fellowship to watch people get to know God, and then we watch the same people who didn't know him before they got connected level get to make him known because there's confidence, because there's insight and wisdom, because there's been a pattern of replication of, there's been fruitfulness, right? We've been reproducing after our own kind. And then ultimately, you know, that praise goes to God by those who've been impacted. And that's the ultimate. That's all I'm wanting. That's my whole practically my whole adult life given to possibly seeing this in as more a greater way as possible, that people will come to know God, that people will make him known, that people will connect with the whole experience of redemption and restoration, right? That's what we're here for. And then the manifestation of his kingdom. It was a big thing for Jesus. It was a big thing for his ministry. He talked about it all the time. He said, pray for it. He said, enter it like a child. Big thing for Jesus. And so here we have this invitation to become followers of Christ. We have this invitation to create communities where fellowship is a priority as we seek to be more like him and seek to help to fulfill his purpose in the earth. So Lord bless you with this word, and I'm glad I got this portion of it out, and I hope it blessed your hearts. Peace to all of y'all at this wonderful church.
Thank you for joining us here at the Journey Center. We pray this message has blessed and encouraged you. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to grow in faith with us. We have more uplifting messages and powerful teachings coming your way, so stay connected. Until next time, may God bless you and guide you on your journey.